So Manasi, welcome to our city and welcome to this wonderful Lit Fest. So happy to have you here with us.
Thank you, Vidya, and thank you for having me here.
Your book, Legally Yours, ladies and gentlemen, this is her wonderful book that we're going to be talking about. And I think it's a perfect guide, every woman's guide to her legal rights. And I have to congratulate you on putting this together with so much clarity. That's what I loved when I was reading the book. Every section of it is so clear to the reader. And I think the time has come when women are standing up for their rights far more. They're asserting their rights as well. And I think the book has come at absolutely the right time for women especially. And I love the special note from Navya Nanda, especially where she says that you are not just someone who knows the law, you understand how it affects our everyday life, and care deeply about helping women navigate this. And this comes through with so much clarity in every chapter of your book. And the foreword by Mrinalini Deshmukh also, where she says that this book serves as a comprehensive legal toolkit. I love that sort of caption for it. Manasi, tell us when and how did the idea of writing this book and compiling all this information come to you?
So firstly, hello everyone, good afternoon. And thank you for welcoming me to Chennai. And thank you for being here for this conversation today. So to answer your question, Vidya, the idea of a book called Legally Yours actually came back in 2020 when I started Pink Legal, which is my not-for-profit organization for women's rights, focused on making law accessible and understandable for women. And the work that we were doing had kind of gone viral, and it reached women all over the country. And that's how we were discovered by HarperCollins, who is the publisher of my book. I found a message in my inbox one day which said that I'm so-and-so, my editor from Harper, saying, why don't you convert the work that you are doing with Pink Legal into a book? And I thought it was a fantastic idea, because that way the legal rights and information about it would reach many, many more women, because my personal mission is that every single woman in India should be aware of her legal rights and be legally empowered. Absolutely. So that's how the idea of a book came about. And then, of course, it was about compiling all the information, firstly understanding what are the various areas which affect women's rights, putting them together in different sections, and then compiling not just information about the laws, because knowing your legal rights is of no use if you don't know how to take action and how to use it in day-to-day life. So also practical on-ground information about how can you act now that you know that this is your right, how can you use this and go and fight for your justice and rights. So that's what the process of putting together the book was like.
So before we jump into the book, tell us a little bit about Pink Legal. How do people, women especially, access it, and what does it do to help them?
So Pink Legal is India's first digital platform for educating women about their legal rights. And we are digital so that we can reach the entire country and not be limited to a particular city or state. And through Pink Legal, we do three things. One is we, of course, simplify legal information in bite-sized, easy-to-understand terms so that, you feel like a friend is explaining your legal rights to you versus a lawyer or a legal textbook which will put you to sleep. Then, second thing we do is we run a helpline called Project Nyairi, which is a free-of-cost legal and mental health counseling support for women who are going through an issue and would like to speak to a lawyer or take the help of a mental health counselor to help them understand how to process it. And the third thing we do is we have a pan-India network of about 100 lawyers who have signed up with Pink Legal. And whenever a woman reaches out to us asking for, a lawyer, because mostly, you don't know where to go look for a trusted, good lawyer, we connect them with somebody from our network. And through this connection, just 2 days back, I got a message from somebody who had, in Chennai, in fact, asked us to connect them with a lawyer, and through that lawyer, their sister's divorce came through. And so they had messaged me when they read that I was, coming to Chennai. So that's what we do. It's a three-pronged approach to make sure that women have a 360-degree support when it comes to legal rights. And in the second year of Pink Legal, we were also empaneled with United Nations UN Women. So we are a generation equality ally with them, one of 8 in the country, where we participate with them on projects for, again, creating legal awareness in different forms for women.
That's absolutely wonderful, and I'm happy to know that women can actually access it fairly easily and ask for the help when they need it. I wish we had something like this 25 years ago when a lot of us may have jumped into it ourselves. Now, as far as the book is concerned, your chapters are separated into sections, and that makes it so easy for the reader to understand section by section. It's absolute clarity there. And it's actually like a handbook that takes you through a legal system. And also, I think you use a lot of pop culture examples, real-life case studies, and even some fun games in the book. Can you tell us about that?
So the idea to do that was because, you know, the minute anybody hears the word legal or law, you want to run as far away from it as possible, right? Because it sounds intimidating, it sounds boring. And if I wasn't a lawyer, I would have done the same. But it's important to know your legal rights. It's like insurance or health insurance, life insurance. You don't want to sit and read the document, but you know you have to get your health insurance. So it's the same with legal rights. It's important to know your legal rights, even if you, fortunately, don't need to use them. And that is why I wanted to make the book accessible, fun to read, and very light. So I've done this by using lots of pop culture examples from movies, where, you know, we look at scenes from certain movies which interact with how legal rights work, or we use real-life case studies to show women how a certain situation pans out in real life and what, you know, she can practically do about it. And at the end of every chapter, there are like fun games like quizzes or a crossword, just to test your knowledge. To know how much you have understood from the book. There are also like chai and coffee breaks where, you know, we have like these food for thought segments. Because law is not just about understanding your legal rights. You're not going for an exam. It's about thinking about, you know, what is the law and is it enough? Or do I want to demand more? Or is this correct? And so that's what the food for thought sections leave you with. So that's how I've tried to make this book a light and slightly more fun read, if I may say so, for a heavy subject like law.
It's certainly an interesting read, fun in little bits where you try to lighten the story, but it is a very serious documentation of all you lead us through so many segments of problems that one can have and the solutions to it. And I think that's amazing. Things like cyberbullying, which today is part of our new age life. I love the chapter on sexual harassment. I think that's something people face not just at the workplace, but maybe even when you're traveling, someone in a bus, someone in a train. And in fact, I have one cute, funny incident. I mean, it's not funny because it was sexual harassment. So I bicycle on Sundays, and I was telling Manasi this, and I was bicycling along at 4:30 in the morning through Tidal Park, and suddenly I found someone pinched my butt. And I turned around in shock, and there was this very young fellow on a scooter. So I shouted at him, "Hey, you F off," something I shouted at him. So he just waved and went off. That is actually something to do like a sexual harassment thing. So I was very agitated for about 10 minutes, and after about 10, 15 minutes, I thought, okay, at 72, someone pinched my butt, it's okay. So but it's actually not funny at all. It's a situation that anyone can be in a bus where you are sexually harassed. So Manasi gives us a lot of solutions what to do in a situation like that. I think that was something very, very useful for people who put themselves or happen to be in a situation like that. Also, there are certain things now, so many women are in the workplace. You talk about rights for women in your workplace. Could you just expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, so I have an entire section related to workplace rights in the book, which talk not only about your rights against sexual harassment in the workplace, but also rights like your maternity rights, or, you know, rights if equal pay for equal work, because these are also equally important topics that women should know about. And so I've covered all of these 3 sections. And in the, you know, sexual harassment chapter, I've talked about the POSH Act. POSH Act is basically the Prevention of Sexual Harassment Against Women law, which was passed very, very late, in 2013, if I'm not mistaken. And this law came to us thanks to the efforts of Supreme Court judgments, which unfortunately have a very dark history of the struggles of a woman in Rajasthan who went through a terrible, I wouldn't want to talk about that dark, topic right now, but you can find it in my book, because we should know who we owe our rights to today. So I've spoken about not just the law, but the origins of the law, just to give readers a context of how law evolves. It's not evolving in a vacuum. It comes through the society and the context in which we are. But along with that, there are, of course, very, very practical day-to-day tips and guidelines on what can you do if you find that a male colleague is getting paid more for the same work that you do, or what can you do if you face sexual harassment at the workplace, or if the HR is not taking down your complaint, or when you join a company, what kind of questions should you be asking? How do you do like a health check of the company? So all of these really practical tips. Similarly, even for maternity rights, I've spoken about not just about maternity rights which you get from your office, which you get a certain maternity leave, but to add context to it, I've also touched upon the fact that maternity rights don't just begin in the workplace or in law, but they begin at home with equal parenting, where women don't have to take a step back from their careers for the sake of raising children, and don't have to choose between the two the same way probably their husbands don't have to choose. So it's law packaged with a lot of day-to-day context where women can think about it in their everyday lives.
I think that's very practical advice you're giving people, because increasingly so many women are in the workplace, and I don't know if it's threatening, men feel threatened by this, because a lot of them are super bright women who are rising very quickly in the ladder of the work area. So people do face this kind of harassment. It's very, very obvious, and you read about it all the time. So I think you're giving people a lot of very practical advice from that. And then the other chapter I loved was your chapter on marriage and the issues that go with it. Behind closed doors also, domestic violence and marital law. I mean, these are all subjects that are so relevant to us, because maybe 25, 30 years ago, people did not know that much, but now everyone knows that they have a right to something, and there is a point at which you can say, that's it, I'm not taking any more. Could you expand a bit on that?
So, when I started Pink Legal in 2020, I thought that sexual harassment will be the most visited section on our website, because you step out of your home and there is somebody waiting to catcall you or give you dirty stares. But within within a week, our inbox was flooded. We had more than 60,000 visits, organic visits on our website. And guess which page had the maximum views? It was domestic violence. And this first-hand experience was shocking to me, and it was a shocking revelation at how prevalent domestic violence is in India. And we are talking about Pink Legal, which is a platform on the internet in English. So it is this section of society that has accessed it and is still facing domestic violence. So in the chapter Behind Closed Doors, I talk about domestic violence, on how to identify it, and that it's not only physical abuse, but also mental, financial abuse, and sexual abuse. And all of these together are domestic violence, because most women believe that only physical abuse counts as domestic violence. Then practical tips on how do you get out of a situation if you're actually in that situation. Should you file a police complaint? Should you go to the court? Should you, if you plan to leave the house and escape from it or go back to your home, what should your bag contain, your Aadhaar card, your passport, all your documents, because a lot of women face this issue that they are so traumatized, they just one day get up and leave, and they go back to their house, to their parents, but they're not able to recover their documents, they're not able to recover their belongings. So just like before going to a hospital for for giving birth, you have like a little bag ready, like a hospital bag ready. I say you should have the same thing in case you want to, leave home. If you plan to do that, have all your documents ready with you so that you are not suffering additionally after already going through what you're going through. And then I also touch upon marriage and divorce, the exit option of marriage, and explain how personal religious laws affect it, because in India, Your religion determines what your rights are in a marriage and what is the procedure you can use for getting divorce. What are your rights in a divorce? All of this is different, so we have so many women sitting here. And your rights could be different from the woman's rights who's sitting right next to you simply because you follow a different religion. So it's very important to understand that difference, what to expect. And of course, nobody gets into a marriage thinking that they're going to get a divorce, right? So we get into a marriage believing that it's going to be the best thing. So I've also spoken about, while getting married, what are certain things you should be safeguarding, like wedding gifts. How do you handle that? The question of dowry, question of like, who bears the expenses of the marriage? Is it only the bride's family that has to bear? Do you have to change your surname after marriage? What about the surname of your children? So all of these like really practical day-to-day questions. And when it comes to divorce, the exit option, we again talk about, within each religion, how do you approach it, as well as alimony, maintenance, custody of children, what are the practical things to keep in mind? Because a lot of times we see in divorce cases today, what happens is when a husband and wife are living in a house and both are working, the husband's salary or income is usually used to pay the mortgage or to pay the rent of the house, and the wife's income is used for groceries, utilities, etc. And this very simple arrangement causes a lot of issues when it comes to divorce, because then, even though both of them are jointly running the house, it's always, the husband can always claim that it is me, it is I who have, bought this house, or I'm responsible, so I'm going to get this house, and I'll probably give her like some mere, alimony or maintenance. So a lot of these practical, day-to-day things that women will not know about because nobody's there to tell you about all of these things, and there's no guidance. So that's something that I've tried to cover in this chapter in Legally Yours.
These are all things that are going to be very, very helpful to a lot of women. I mean, I can say in my own personal case, in 2010, I filed a domestic violence case against my ex-husband, and it took me 11 years of going to court every day. It's the most terrible court somewhere in Saidapet, ghastly place, and actually it's a criminal court, and unfortunately domestic violence cases come under the criminal court. And there was me and a few other women, and then there were real criminals, people with handcuffs and with police with them. So it was a very weird place to be in. I went for 11 years, only missed one time in the court because I was in a swimming event. Otherwise, I would have been there for that too. And it took 11 years to get a judgment from the judge. So it came in my favor, of course. But having said that, 11 years is a long time to just go through with this focus constantly in front of you. So I'm glad this book, I think, is definitely going to help a lot of people in all these kind of matters, which are so important. You don't think of it too much, but a lot of people have never even heard of domestic violence cases. They don't know there's such a law even. And another thing you've dealt with very interestingly is what is again becoming more common, lived-in relationships. And could you tell us how you gave us the understanding of legal rights for women in those kind of situations?
So live-in relationships are becoming increasingly common these days, and a lot of young couples choose to, be in live-in relationships either as a replacement for marriage or as a testing ground before you get married. So in this chapter, I've covered, things like, are they legal? What are your legal rights in a live-in relationship? What if the housing society where you want to rent an apartment says we don't want only married couples? No live-in couples allowed. You are spoiling the culture of our society. So what about nosy neighbors? How do you handle them? Then also about, there's a smart girl's guide to live-in relationships within that chapter, which talks about how do you secure yourself financially if something goes wrong. Because unlike a marriage where you have to go to court and get a divorce degree, a live-in relationship is as simple as today you're together, and tomorrow one of the partners may just walk up and leave. But if you have built a whole life together as a live-in relationship, it's very difficult for you to, handle that if your partner tomorrow just gets up and leaves. You don't have any legal rights in terms of being a wife where you can claim inheritance or, you have a proof. So how do you secure yourself in such a situation? How do you prove your live-in relationship? How do you make sure that your rights are not affected? And if something does happen, what is the recourse you can take? So all the scenarios that could possibly come up and how do you handle those is something that I try to cover in this as a way of saying there's no, do whatever if you choose to be in a live-in relationship, that's great, but just make sure that you protect yourself because the law may not always protect you.
It's interesting that there are not too many laws to protect someone in that situation, because increasingly a lot of younger people, not the very young ones, but the younger people are choosing to live together. I think it just makes life easy, and they just happen to share a home together and live a life together. And what happens when one of them decides to walk out? That's where your book will come in handy for them. I think that's again another very good chapter that you've put together. Another thing which I was very interested in is your money matters and inheritance. You have a whole chapter for that, inheritance laws and inheritance. Could you just briefly tell us about that also?
So I strongly believe that women need to be financially independent no matter what, whether you're a working woman or whether you're a homemaker. In either situations, you can be financially independent. And the money matters section deals with this on how do you deal with inheritance? So what are your rights? Then how do you pass on your property? And again, as marriage and divorce is governed by your religion, the same way your rights to inheritance and your rights to pass on your property are also governed by your religion. And we have very weird scenarios here where, your closeness to your family is decided by which religion you come from. For example, for a Hindu woman, supposing she were to pass away without a will, her property will not go to her parents. They are not her first legal heirs. Her property will go to her husband and children, and in their absence, to her in-laws. So her in-laws are ranked higher than her own parents. Whereas for a Muslim woman, her parents continue to remain her legal heirs, and whether she's married or not, that doesn't change. So we have very peculiar situations in India, where your rights, your relationships, and the closeness is governed by laws which were made back in the, British era, and which have not really been updated and kept up with times. So it's very important for women to understand these nuanced details of how they can, secure their property rights, or what can you do if you as a sister are left out of the inheritance by your brothers. What should you do, and how do you ensure that that doesn't happen? How do you claim what's rightfully yours? All of these are covered in that chapter, and I believe it's very important for women to know about their financial rights, because financial security is the #1 security you can have for yourself to create a life on your own terms. And I say this from my personal experience of dealing with thousands of cases in Pink Legal. We have seen that most of the women who come to us, whether they're able to walk out of a toxic or an abusive situation or not, is completely dependent on whether they are financially independent or not. And we have seen that when women are financially independent, they are able to make that choice to leave a toxic marriage. And therefore, I really stress upon the fact that, financial independence is extremely important for women.
That's my favorite one chapter of all that you've written, which I think everyone should read. Knocking on the doors of justice. I think when a situation arises, how do you go to a police station? It's absolutely intimidating. First, they won't even probably acknowledge you, and then there are all kinds of characters in the police station who can take advantage of the situation. And what do? You talk about filing an FIR, filing a case of other matters when you go to, suppose you've been molested or raped. What happens then? It's a terrifying situation actually, and I'm glad that these things that you've written has so much clarity that actually you know what to do next and what to do to go to a police station, what to expect, and what is an FIR, what are any of those things. I loved that chapter.
Thank you. And the reason I've written that chapter in detail is from a personal experience, because before I started Pink Legal, and one of the incidents that pushed me to start Pink Legal was a personal experience where one day when I was driving home from work, my car met with a small accident with another car right in front of me. Our bumpers touched. And out came these, two men who were in a rage, and they blocked my car, they were banging on the doors, they were like really terrifying, and this was at 10 p.m. in the night, and I was alone in the car, and they broke my side view mirrors, and they were very abusive. So I somehow got out of the situation and drove back home safe. But being a lawyer, in that situation, I remembered that the devil lies in the details, so I took a picture of their number plate. And this is what helped me file a police complaint against them the next day. Now, even for me, it was a very intimidating experience to walk into a police station with a police complaint, because I had never done that before. And walking over there, preparing my police complaint, actually made me realize that if, as a lawyer, I feel so scared to walk into a police station, what about other women who do not know their legal rights? And that's when I decided that I must do something about it. And, Pink Legal was born, and also the chapter on knocking the doors of justice, where I have given very detailed steps on what is a police complaint, how do you write one, what is the difference between a police complaint and an FIR, what do you do if the police refuses to take your, complaint. But I must say, Vidya, that times have really progressed. And the police were very open, very receptive. They were very helpful. It could also be because I'm a lawyer and I knew my legal rights. But I did experience that it was a positive environment. And I would encourage women, and I would say that if you ever feel the need, do not hesitate to walk into a police station, because things have really progressed. And if you find any kind of pushback, you have Legally Yours, and you know what to do and what step to take next.
Take out the book, keep it with you as a handbook. I think when you're moving around. I had a very odd incident some years ago where I was jogging in Boat Club, twilight, and as I went past one huge big white car, the chap got out of the car completely stark naked. I can tell you it wasn't a pretty sight at all. But it was a shock. It came as a shock. It's the first time that had happened to me. And I turned around, ran back to a friend who lives close by, called him and his cousin. They came actually with 2 hockey sticks to beat this fellow up. By the time he had dressed up, and when they came and questioned him, he said, no, that was not me, that was my driver. And we just left. My friend warned him and said, don't ever come back to Boat Club, otherwise you're in danger from us, don't come back. He never came back. But the fact is that did happen, and there was no time in those days, no phones and no awareness to take a photograph or anything. Not that I would have photographed him naked, but at least I would have had his car number and things like that, So, but it can be very, very intimidating in a public place or anywhere else to be confronted with this kind of sexual harassment or anger management with people who do it when they bang into your car. That has happened to me a few times too. And it's interesting, all these various examples. One last question before we wind up. So have a lot of people come to you for help in these various cases, these kind of cases, Manasi?
Yes, a lot of people do come. A lot of women reach out to Pink Legal and sometimes even to me through my personal, Instagram or LinkedIn. And a lot of these cases are, as I said, domestic violence, divorce, stuck in an abusive marriage and I don't know what to do, or I have left the marriage and come back home, but all my jewelry, everything is stuck over there. How do I recover it? How do I, the husband is supposed to provide maintenance and alimony, but he's not paying, and I have a child and I don't have the means to raise the child. What should I do? Or there are a lot of cases of cyberbullying nowadays where, young girls are trying to seek help. So there is a different variety of cases or different variety of problems that, women are facing. And they do come, and we do try to provide the best solution we can by guiding them in the right direction so that, they can take action for their problems.
Do you help them with lawyers as well and legal advice too?
Yeah, so as I said, Pink Legal has, the helpline. So if they need to speak to a lawyer, then they can speak to our lawyers and get guidance from them. And if they need to connect to us, supposing now they've spoken to the lawyer and they have understood that, okay, I want to go ahead and file a case, then they can also connect with us. We will connect them to a lawyer, and then they can go ahead and file a case. But we've noticed that it's a funnel. So if there are 100 queries that come, out of those queries, maybe 20 women will actually go out and speak to a lawyer to understand their rights. And of those 20, maybe 2 or 3 will actually go ahead and file the case.
that's unfortunate to hear. The rest have to suffer and just manage on their own, I guess. Your book, Manasi, is definitely going to be a handbook for most women, not just to educate themselves on their rights, but be ready, I think, for any situation that comes their way. There are a lot of scenarios that you've given which can apply to some of us, not all of them, but some of them can apply to some of us. And a lot of us are going to wish that you'd written this book 20 years ago. So thank you very much for this wonderful book, and it's been an absolute pleasure reading it and chatting with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Vidya. Thank you for having me.
So I think we're open. Manasi is open to some questions. If anyone would like to ask something of her, she's right here ready to answer anything. There we have someone right in front. There's a mic coming to you.
Hi, Manasi. My name is Shruti, and I'm getting married and I'm moving out of country, and my citizenship status is all going to change. So does that impact my So does that impact my inheritance because I no longer will be an Indian citizen?
Your inheritance will not be affected by your citizenship. It will be affected by your marriage, because once you are married, I'm assuming you are a Hindu girl, right?
Yes.
So once you are married, that will affect whether how much of your property you will get, and it will also affect how you can pass on, like who your legal heirs are. So that's what will be affected. But it's okay if you take up the citizenship of another country. That's completely fine.
Thank you.
Hi, Manasi. Here. First off, thank you for writing the book. Second, I wanted to ask, if there was a law you could have passed that would protect women, any law, what would be your priority?
So there are two. One is marital rape, of course, which has been, a subject of discussion. But another law I would really like to pass is harassment of women via death and rape threats. Because this has become an increasingly common menace where anything happens, people want to take out their frustration. They go and start threatening women with life and rape, death and rape, and it's just disgusting. But there are no recourses to it. There are no laws that directly criminalize it or punish it, and you can hardly take action. So even women who are on, very big public platforms have spoken about this, but have not really found a solution to their issues. So I would really like to pass a law on that.
Hi, I'm Saumitra Srinivasan. I operate a trust called Shakti Public Charitable Trust. Any professionally working woman in Chennai city who's undergoing domestic violence is free to reach out to me. I provide counseling and legal redressal just as much as you do. I think the challenge is not only that these women come to us, the inordinate delay it takes for them to get a solution in the court. So do you have any thoughts about fast tracking at court level?
So I've also addressed this in my book, to give women a realistic idea of what happens once you file a case. And we do have fast-track courts. We have family law courts which are also dedicated to certain subjects like domestic violence, or even there are fast-track courts for rape. But what happens on ground is that for a case like Nirbhaya, which shook the entire country and was being tried out in a fast-track court, for many months there was no judge in that court because the judge retired and then there was no replacement. So that case took 11 years. So even if we have fast-track courts in the country, on ground it doesn't translate into faster or more effective justice. And therefore, in the book, I have tried to, wherever possible, I've tried to address that if the law is not able to help you, or if the law is getting delayed, how can you help yourself within this situation? And that's something we really need to know, because unfortunately, I cannot change the law, but I can at least tell women what to do in the current scenario and make their lives better.
Hi, I'm Ranjani. I have a question in connection to the question which she asked about the citizenship. As a Hindu woman, if I register a will and make my parents as, if I want to bequeath my property to my parents, then that stands, right?
Yes, of course. So as a woman, you are free to give your property to anybody you want, not just your parents. It could also be me. if you ever think of it. So, yeah.
Hello, ma'am. I'm Bushra. I'm an 8th grader. I would like to ask you, what inspired you to write Legally Yours?
Hi, Risha.
Bushra.
Prisha.
Bushra.
Hi, Bushra. So what inspired me to write Legally Yours was the fact that India has many strong laws for women, but most young girls and women don't know about these laws and their rights because law is very complicated and you don't know where to find good information, which is also easy to understand. So I wanted to bridge this gap and make sure that everyone, every woman and girl from 16 years to 60 years old can understand her legal rights in all areas of life. And that's why I've written Legally Yours.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mansi, I had a question. I think it's great what you've done, but I find a lot of women who are from the villages or who don't speak or read or write English. A lot of them are the ones who really struggle. So is there a plan through UN Women or whatever you're associated with? Is there a plan to put this into vernacular languages?
Yes, of course. As we speak, the Hindi version of Legally Yours is getting printed, and we just finalized the title for it. So Harper is, getting the Hindi version out, and hopefully other languages soon.
I think we have time for one or two more questions. We have someone here.
When I was growing up in the 70s and 80s, flashing by men, of course, was common. And has that reduced today? And is that a punishable offense? Thank you.
I am not sure if it has reduced or not, honestly. But I know that the incidences of flashing are quite common even today, because when I was doing research for my book, I found many incidences, newspaper reports about like in Mumbai, in broad daylight, a mother and daughter were going in a cab, and the taxi driver, he started flashing them and refused to stop the car and pull over. So luckily, they went and filed a complaint, and they got redressal. And I've also mentioned about this in the book. So I believe that it is still very much common, but it is definitely a criminal offense, and you can take action, and I'm sure that the police will take something like flashing very seriously and take immediate action against it.
It's good to know that.
Hi, I'm Jashwita.
Just stand up. Oh, sorry, there she's here.
I'm Jashwita. I have a doubt. Is why men are always taking advantage over women?
I love that.
I wish we could ask this question to the men, and maybe they are scared of us, that, if they don't take advantage, then we will become very powerful. But times are changing, and women are becoming much stronger, so it's not the case as much now.
I actually have one question. So, my name is Abhishek. I am in my 3rd year of law school, and I came across CRPC and BNSS in my 2nd year. Now, if my memory serves me right, section 125 to 128 of the current BNSS, Bharatiya Nyaya Suraksha Sanhita, talks about maintenance to essentially the family members of any particular person. So it quite struck me that when we were talking about live-in relationships, there is no particular recourse through the CRPC or the BNSS for live-in relationships. So would an amendment be required to integrate live-in relationships into this particular section? Or is there any loophole that allows one to file for during a live-in relationship?
So rightly said, there is no law in India about live-in relationships at all. Okay, and the only legal rights that we get about live-in relationships are through Supreme Court judgments, which are again random, right? It's not a proper structured law. The criminal law, which is BNSS, does not address live-in relationships. If you think about it, the BNSS is basically the Indian Penal Code, which came from 1860s. Okay, in 1860, we did not have live-in relationships. And the same law is applicable even in 2026. There is no change. Only the name was changed. So, you know, I say it's like an old ambassador passed down from generations with a new coat of paint. That's the only thing that has happened in this law. It has not changed. So we do need an amendment, not just for live-in relationships, but for everything, right, from marital rape to sexual harassment, making it more gender neutral, and an overall, you know, restructuring of laws.
Hi, this is Angel. I have a question about, you have discussed something of the visible male domination.
I can't hear you. Riya, come.
Put your mic closer to your mouth.
I have a question about, you have discussed some visible male domination. What about the invisible male domination in the career? Even a smarter woman have to work 200% out of the 100%. Well, how do you see it?
That's 100% true, and I have addressed that in my book because, you know, visible discrimination is easy to fight, but invisible is not. So I've spoken about how, you know, if you feel that colleagues are being unfair, what can you do? How can you gather support? How can you gather evidence? How can you make a soft, you know, if there is this soft invisible place, how can you kind of make that change? I have spoken about this, and I hope you will find that helpful in the book.
Thank you.
I think we have time for one last question. Anyone out there? Here we have a lady in front. Would someone give her a mic, please?
Hello. Hi, this is Vaishnavi. So I have this question. In this digital age and social media, the new form of harassment and abuse has raised questions when it comes to laws. How these laws are able to help women in need?
Sorry, could you repeat your question? I can't hear you.
My question is, in this digital age and social media, the new form of harassment and abuse has raised questions when it comes to laws. How these laws are able to help women in need?
I didn't get it.
Cyberbullying?
Yeah, when it comes to harassment
Okay.
and abuse on social media and digital age.
So, are you asking about cyberbullying laws?
Cyberbullying laws,
Okay.
as well as like all the other stuff women face on social media.
Yeah. So I would say that there is a gap in the laws. We don't have adequate laws for cyberbullying. The only law we have is the Information Technology Act, which is again from 2000, which was a very different era of the internet. And we do need a cyberbullying act, which addresses all of the different forms of bullying that have emerged today. And hopefully, you know, our parliament will soon enact that too.
I have an incident to tell you. I have an older cousin who's about 83 years old, and she was a victim to this cyberbullying. These people called her and said that her son is in danger, they're going to arrest him unless she transfers a certain amount of money. So over the whole day, they made her transfer 1.30 crore to them. She kept transferring, even the bank manager told her, what are you doing? So she said, no, I've got to do it. After she transferred, then her son came back from out of town, realized what happened, and it was too late, even though they gave the police complaints. So this is clearly what they call cyberbullying. And they tend to target senior citizens and older people, so that's a danger we've got to be very aware of, I think. Your book deals with that as well.
Yeah, it does deal with new forms of cyberbullying, but honestly, forms of cyberbullying are emerging every week. And the book will have to be updated every week to address each and every form of cyberbullying that exists.
That's right. Paloma? Thank you. Thank you, Manasi. It's been wonderful chatting with you, and I think we'll hand over to Paloma now.
I felt really sorry to interrupt. So, Manasi, thank you so much for being here. And I think that was an extremely interesting session. Thank you for helping us feel more empowered, giving us a little more clarity. And can we have a round of applause for the audience? Thank you all for being so engaged and involved. And of course, you're available for people to have the copies of their books signed, and the book is available outside. So thank you once again. Vidya and Manasi, could we have a picture of the both of you? Thank you. Can we have a big round of applause for both of our speakers, ladies and gentlemen?